Good morning, grade 8 students, and welcome to English video lessons. Today you will learn how to use the past simple tense. Please open your student's book, page 11. We have two objectives for today's lesson. Number 1. Identify the form and use of past simple and used to through reading a short text and answering a set of questions correctly. Number 2. Apply the rules of past simple and used to by completing sentences accurately. So, what is the past simple or the simple past? Have a look at activity A. Look at the verbs in blue. What tense do you think is this, and how do you know? Very good. It's the past simple. And we know that because both verbs end in ed. Now let's look at how we form the past simple tense. The first thing to remember is that in English we have two kinds of verbs, regular verbs and irregular verbs. The regular verbs end with ed or just d in the past. So when you use a regular verb like visit, all you need to do is to add ed. In the past, the verb visit becomes visited. The verb call becomes called. The verb talk becomes talked. And the verb manage becomes managed. Pay attention that manage needs only d because there is already e at the end of the verb. But when it comes to irregular verbs, that doesn't happen. We don't add ed. In the irregular cases, sometimes the verb changes completely, just like go, which becomes went. And sometimes it changes a little bit, just like eat, which becomes ate, and drive, which becomes drove. Verb to be becomes in the past was or were. That's for a positive sentence. Now let's look at what happens if we want to make a negative sentence. Here you have to use didn't plus the infinitive. So for example, visit becomes didn't visit and go becomes didn't go. If you want to make a question in the past, all you need to do is to use did plus the infinitive. So for example, visit becomes did you visit your friends yesterday? And go becomes did you go to the beach yesterday? But when do we use the past simple tense? Past simple specifically talks about actions, events, or situations that happened in the past, started and were completed at a specific time in the past. Let's look at this example. They had lunch an hour ago. An hour ago is a time expression that refers to the past. As soon as you use this verb had, which is the past of have, we know that you are talking about the past. We also use the past simple for habitual or repeated actions in the past, things you did every week, every month, or even every day. For example, I always read comics when I was young. Here, you have to use a frequency indicator to show how often you did that action. Frequency indicators are words just like always, every day, every night, and very often. We use the past simple for completed actions that happened one after the other in the past. For example, yesterday I had dinner, finished my homework, and went to bed. In this sentence, we have many actions that happened yesterday, and each one of them followed the other. Keep in mind that we form the affirmative past simple tense with the subject plus the past simple form of the verb. We can use the same verb for all subjects and say, I worked, he worked, she worked, we worked, you worked, and they worked. You don't have to change it. To make a negative sentence, we use a subject plus a helping verb, which is did, negative didn't, plus the infinitive form of the verb, and say, I didn't work, He didn't work, she didn't work, and so on. To make a yes-no question, we use a helping verb again, which is did, plus a subject, plus the infinitive form of the verb, and say, did he work? Did she work? Did they work? And so on. Verbs to be. The be verb in the past simple tense can be used to describe a past general state. We use the be verbs was and were in this tense. Take a look how we form an affirmative sentence using verbs to be. To make an affirmative sentence, we say, for example, I was late yesterday. He was late yesterday. She was late yesterday. But you were late yesterday. We were late yesterday. And they were late yesterday. To make a negative sentence, you have to use the negative form of was, which is wasn't, and the negative form of were, which is weren't, and say, I wasn't late yesterday. He wasn't late yesterday. You weren't late yesterday. We weren't late yesterday, and so on. To make a question, use was and were again, and say, was I late yesterday? Was he late yesterday? Were you late yesterday? And so on. Now let's have a look at Activity B, page 11. In this activity, you have to find and underline all the examples of the past simple in the rest of the text in the pink box. Are these verbs regular or irregular? And how do you know? Take a couple of minutes and try to find the answers. Very good. All of these verbs are irregular. And we know that because regular verbs end in ed, whereas irregular verbs do not follow a specific pattern. Now let's move on to Activity C. In Activity C, you have to answer this question. Why are the speakers using the past simple? Excellent, because they are talking about something that happened last month. Time expressions. Time expressions help you figure out what tense to use. These are very common time expressions that we use with the past simple tense. Yesterday, yesterday morning, yesterday evening, last night, last week, last weekend, last summer, 2 days ago, a week ago, 5 years ago, in plus a year in the past, just like in 2015 or in 2017. Always remember that time expressions come at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence. Let's do some questions together to see how much you remember. What did they do last summer? In this activity, you are going to use the past simple and correct the verbs in brackets. Number 1. Jack and his father a tree house. Excellent. Jack and his father built a tree house. Number 2. Mike to Florida and there he's surfing all day long. Well done. Mike traveled to Florida and there he enjoyed surfing all day long. Number 3. Bob and Sarah married, but they me to the wedding. Great job. Bob and Sarah got married, but they didn't invite me to the wedding. Now complete with the past simple form of the verbs in brackets. Based on the time expressions you see, the correct answers are very good. Sarah went shopping last week. The weather was fine yesterday. I worked in a big company 2 years ago. Now complete with the negative form of the past simple verbs in brackets. Well done. Sarah didn't go shopping last week. The weather wasn't fine yesterday. I didn't work in a big company 2 years ago. Now try to change these sentences into yes/no questions. Amazing! Did Muna do her homework? Did they play tennis last week? Were they in the mall? Great job! Used to. Now have a look at Activity D, page 11. I used to check my phone all the time for notifications. Now I realize it's okay to just disconnect. What do you think this sentence means? Good. It means that I checked my phone all the time for notifications in the past, but don't anymore. So I used to do this in the past, but now I don't. So this is the way we use used to. We use it to talk about something that happened regularly in the past, but no longer does. Used to always stays the same for all pronouns. To make an affirmative sentence, use a subject plus used to plus the infinitive form of the verb and say, we used to play chess when we were young, or I used to play chess when I was young. To make a negative sentence, use a subject plus didn't used to plus the infinitive form of the verb and say, I didn't used to play chess when I was young. But to make a question, use did plus a subject plus used to plus the infinitive form of the verb and say, did you used to play chess when you were young? Let's practice together. Try to complete these sentences with used to. Well done. I used to live in the country when I was a child before we moved to Rome. I used to play the guitar. I used to get up very early. Now complete with the negative form of used to. Very good. I didn't used to live in the country when I was a child. I didn't used to play the guitar every morning. I didn't used to get up very early. Now change these sentences into yes/no questions. Well done. Did Sarah used to drink milk? Did Adam used to play chess? To practice the past simple and used to, let's do activity E together. Complete with the past simple of the verbs in brackets. Use used to where it's appropriate. Have a couple of minutes to do the activity. Let's check your answers. Yesterday, I went to Dan's house. We watched some funny videos. Then we decided to make a video. It was great. But we couldn't upload it, so we were very upset. Why were you late for school today? I didn't hear my alarm clock, and I woke up at 9 a.m. In the past, Sandy didn't have a laptop, and you can say Sandy didn't used to have a laptop. She did her homework on a desktop computer, and you can say she used to do her homework on a desktop computer. Well done. Now it's time to practice the past simple and used to communicate with your friends. Discuss the following. At what age did you get your first phone, laptop, or tablet? Which electronic devices did you used to have but don't have any longer? Which sites do you usually visit when you are online? Take your time and think of possible answers. Well done. These are some suggested answers. I got my first tablet when I was 10 years old. I used to have a camera, but now I take pictures with my phone. I like visiting sites with online games. Now have a look at this question. What do you know about the outbreak of coronavirus in 2020? Excellent. It started in December 2019 in Wuhan, China. Experts say it originated in bats. It made the jump to humans at one of Wuhan's open-air markets. But what did people used to do and didn't used to do before coronavirus outbreak? Amazing! Before COVID-19, we used to go shopping at crowded shopping centers. We used to attend weddings and public meetings. We didn't used to wear masks and keep social distance. Thank you for watching.